Jesus said to his disciples, "A rich man had a steward who was reported to him for squandering his property. He summoned him and said, 'What is this I hear about you? Prepare a full account of your stewardship, because you can no longer be my steward.' The steward said to himself, 'What shall I do, now that my master is taking the position of steward away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do so that, when I am removed from the stewardship, they may welcome me into their homes.' He called in his master's debtors one by one. To the first he said, 'How much do you owe my master?' He replied, 100 measures of olive oil. He said to him, 'Here is your promissory note. Sit down and quickly write one for 50. Then to another the steward said, 'And you, how much do you owe?' He replied, 100 quarts of wheat. The steward said to him, 'Here is your promissory note. Write one for 80. And the master commended that dishonest steward for acting prudently. For the children of this world are more prudent in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. I tell you, make friends for yourselves with the dishonest wealth, so that when it fails, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. The person who is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones. And the person who is dishonest in very small matters is also dishonest in great ones. If therefore you are not trustworthy with dishonest wealth, who will trust you with true wealth? If you are not trustworthy with what belongs to another, who will give you what is yours? No servant can serve two masters. He will either hate one or love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon. The Gospel of the Lord. There is a short story about a businessman. Once he had interviewed 3 applicants for a job post in his company. As a test, he asked each of them a very simple question. If you divide 6 by 2, what is the result? The first applicant immediately answered the question by saying the answer is 3. And we know that the answer was perfectly right. But he was not hired for being too honest. The second applicant answered the question by saying the answer 6 divided by 2 is 2, a perfectly wrong answer. Again, he was not hired because he was dishonest and for being ignorantly fooled. When the same question was asked to the third applicant, he answered the question by saying, "Sir, if I were to divide 6 between you and me, I will give you 4 and take 2 myself." And he was hired for being clever. My dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, in today's gospel reading, Jesus speaks about learning how to use well whatever we have, our resources. There is an admiration for the dishonest steward, not for his dishonesty, but his ability to figure his way out of the mess he had created. Most of us hit a crisis at one time or another in our lives. And it can be different sorts of crises. A relationship with someone may bring a lot of pain and struggle, or our health or the health of someone we love may have taken a twist or for the worst. Or we may face with some loss, significant loss, whether it may be a loss of a job, or loss of our independence, or the loss of our loved one. In whatever way, when we are facing with such kind of crisis, we come to know that we bring home to us what it really matters to us in our life and what it is that is not important for us in our lives. And usually, those kind of life situations bring home to us that what matters most in our life are the people in our lives. The things that we have accumulated in our life may not have that significant role to make our way out of that crisis situation. But the people in our life may have a significant role to help us in those situations. We have seen in today's gospel story the parable of the steward. It may be the strangest parable in all of the four Gospels. And this parable is coming immediately after the parable of the prodigal son, which we heard last Sunday. In that parable, there was at least two attractive characters. The father who was faithful and merciful to an extraordinary degree, and a younger son, though he made mess of things, at the end he returned home. So there were two attractive characters in that parable. But in today's gospel story, in the parable, neither the rich man nor the steward is a praiseworthy person. Neither of them can be considered as heroes. Yet Jesus told this story to his disciples probably because he recognized that it had something to teach them. And this parable reminds us that God can communicate to us through any sort of people, all kinds of people. God can communicate to us even people who were never considered as saints. Also, God can communicate to us through all sorts of our life situations, even those situations that are not noble or exemplary. So this parable is a paradoxical story about a steward of the estate of an absentee rich man. And this steward was a complete rogue, but his boss praised him for his dishonest behavior because he acted with foresight. Facing the return of his master and an audit of his accounts, he cleverly converted his master's debtors into his own debtors. In another way, he bought friends by using his master's money. and use those friends for securing a means of livelihood for a certainly approaching point when he would dismiss from his job. So Jesus wants all his disciples in every age to learn something from the way he handled his life situation, the way he handled the crisis in his life. And we need to have an equal, intelligent, and alert when it is coming to serving God or securing our life for eternity. Especially, we need to have his sense of urgency, his sense of decisiveness, his cleverness while we are serving God and his kingdom. So his crisis situation bring home to this toward that what really matters in his life is the people in his life, not whatever he has accumulated in life. And whatever he has accumulated has nothing to do in a crisis situation. Only people in our life can do something to save us from such situations. So the painful and difficult situations in our life can bring us some teaching that would help us to secure our life for eternity. So this parable invites us to take an inventory of our resources placed in our charge. Our talents, our time, our opportunities, our health, our education, our intelligence. And all these resources we need to use wisely so that they can help us to serve our good in eternity. And that was the learning this steward in this parable had. He learned from the situation and he used his talents prudently, his intelligence prudently, and he saved the situation, and that is why he was praised by his boss. My dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, this parable is not about money. The amount we possess is not the issue here. Our commitment is the issue. Our faithfulness is the issue. Our love for heaven is the issue. So let us ask ourselves, will the possessions, friends, and resources that we have gained in our life lead us to God and his kingdom? Will the possessions, friends, and resources we have gained in our life lead us to God and his kingdom? Amen.